Have you ever noticed that there is a difference in the titles given to monarchs between Game of Thrones and House of the Dragon? Robert, Joffrey, Tommen and Daenerys are all given the title King or Queen of the Andals and the First Men. Viserys, on the other hand, is styled as the King of the Andals, the Rhoynar and the First Men, which should have been the title for all monarchs from the beginning. So why this sudden inclusion? That may have everything to do with the upcoming spin-off 10,000 Ships. Welcome to The Boar and the Lion. If you like these kinds of videos, please consider dropping a like and subscribing to the channel. It helps me out a lot with creating future videos. And to everyone who is already subscribed, thank you very much for your support. On the 19th of March 2021, The Hollywood Reporter was the first to announce that a new Game of Thrones spin-off called 10,000 Ships was in production. In May of that same year, Deadline reported that one of the writers for this upcoming series was to be Amanda Segel, which did not ring a bell when I first heard her name. But before this, she worked as a producer on television series such as Hellstrom, Person of Interest and The Good Wife. 2023 and the writer's strike brought some rumors that the show had been shelved or even cancelled. George R.R. Martin confirmed the show was still in production, however, on 2 separate occasions. It hasn't been greenlit yet, but at least work is done to get this show in the air. So let's take a closer look at the story. 10,000 Ships will focus on the story of the warrior queen Nymeria and her people, the Rhoynar. And for those of you wondering, yes, this is the Nymeria that Arya Stark's direwolf is named after, and one of Oberyn's daughters is named after her as well. Nymeria and the Rhoynar would eventually settle down in Dorne, 1,000 years before the story of A Game of Thrones. But they had a long and perilous journey before they arrived in Westeros. Some backstory. The Rhoynar were an ancient civilization of city-states living on the banks of the river Rhoyne, which is the greatest river on the continent of Essos. The Rhoynar were a slender people, with olive skin, black hair and dark eyes. They worshipped the river Rhoyne as a goddess, calling her Mother Rhoyne, and had other deities connected to the river as well, such as a turtle god and the crab king. They were also said to use water magic to defend themselves from their enemies. The Rhoynar rulers styled themselves as prince or princess, rather than king or queen. Inheritance of titles and lands were granted to the eldest child, regardless of gender. After the growing Valyrian Empire conquered Old Geese, they turned their eyes to the west. The Valyrian expansion to the west was first welcomed by the Rhoynar, but eventually led to conflict. A total of 9 wars were fought between the Rhoynar and the Valyrians, lasting over 250 years and collectively called the Rhoynish Wars. In the last war, the Rhoynish city-states were united under Prince Garwin of the city of Croyane. With 250,000 men under his command, he conquered the Valyrian cities of Selhorys, Valisag and Volontaris, defeating 3 dragons in the process with their water magic. This alarmed the Valyrian Empire, who now concentrated their full efforts on this threat. Sending 300 dragons, the Valyrians crushed the Rhoynish army and captured Prince Garwin in a battle near Volantis, and proceeded to destroy the cities of Sarmel and Croyane. While at Croyane, the captive Prince Garwin is said to have called down a curse on the Valyrians, which resulted in the city and surrounding lands being transformed into the Sorrows, a land that is always covered with fog and infested by stone men afflicted with grayscale. Seeing the fate of Prince Garwin and his army, Princess Nymeria of the city of Nisar gathered the surviving Rhoynar, consisting mainly of children, women and the elderly, and fled the continent with them on 10,000 ships. Sailing south along the river Rhoyne, they entered the Summer Sea to start their journey to a new home. While I hope that we will get to see some of the backstory play out in this series, I don't expect we will see much. A battle where water wizards fight 300 dragons, however, would be very cool. I expect the show will focus more on Nymeria's journey after the Rhoynar lose their homeland, and her eventual life in Dorne. And just as was the case with the Sea Snake, I am very excited to see all these mystical locations that we haven't seen before come to life. So let's take a look at the Rhoynar's journey. Their first stop were the Basilisk Isles, where they had to stop for fresh water and provisions. While there they were set upon by local pirate kings. They offered Nymeria the Isle of Toads to settle on, in exchange for all her ships and a tribute of 30 virgins each year. Nymeria refused and she and her people resumed their journey. Their next stop was the continent of Sotorios. Nymeria herself settled in Zametar, a ruined Giscari city, while other groups of her people settled in the ruined city of Yin or founded new settlements on the continent altogether. They didn't stay long. Disease, slavers, the local population and the dangers of the jungle made life a living hell for the Rhoynar. Many of them died. The Rhoynish settlers in the city of Yin even vanished altogether, never to be seen again. And so, once again, Nymeria and her people sailed on. They stopped next on the island of Nath, and were welcomed there by its pacifist native people. Nath is the island that Daenerys' handmaiden Missandei originates from. As the Rhoynar would soon find out, however, people that are not native to Nath cannot stay there long. The butterfly disease, a disease to which the Nati themselves are immune, kills all outsiders within a very short time of arriving. As her people started getting sick around her, Nymeria ordered the Rhoynar to set sail once again. They sailed further west and landed on the Summer Isles. The Summer Islanders allowed the Rhoynar to settle on Abulu, a small island in the north of the archipelago. Thereafter, Abulu has always been known as the Isle of Women. While here, some among the Rhoynar started following a priest called Druselka, who claimed to have heard Mother Rhoyne calling her children home. Druselka and her followers left Nymeria and sailed back to the ruined Rhoynish cities, only to be hunted down and enslaved by the Valyrians. The Rhoynar on Abulu quickly ran out of food, as the small island did not yield enough food or resources to feed all her people. Eventually Nymeria decided to sail again, although a small part of her people decided to stay behind. The current inhabitants of the Isle of Women are the descendants of those Rhoynish settlers. On the last part of their journey, some of her people were lost at sea, and small groups landed on the stepstones and were captured by pirates, but the biggest part of Nymeria's ships landed in Dorne, near the mouth of the river Greenblood. At that time, Dorne was not yet united under one ruler, but rather was a collection of small kingdoms who were constantly at war with each other over resources. Many of these Dornish kings saw the Rhoynar as unwelcome invaders, but Lord Mors Martell of the Sand Ship thought otherwise. It is said that Mors saw an opportunity in the homeless Rhoynar. It is also said that Mors fell madly in love with the beautiful warrior princess. With many of the Rhoynar now trained in battle, due to everything they had to overcome during their journey, the Rhoynar would increase his armies tenfold. Lord Mors Martell married Nymeria, and many of the Dornish knights and lords married Rhoynish women, effectively merging the two peoples. To celebrate this union and the fact that the Rhoynar finally found a new home, Nymeria burned all her ships off the coast at Sunspear. After their marriage, Nymeria named her husband the Prince of Dorne, and their combined peoples proceeded to wage war with the other Dornish kingdoms. In the end, at least 6 kings were sent to the wall and Dorne was united under the rule of House Nymeros Martell. House Martell still uses this double name to this day, with Nymeros meaning of the line of Nymeria. For their sigil, they combined the spear of House Martell with the sun of the Rhoynar. The Dornish and Rhoynish cultures were combined as well. The rulers of Dorne styled themselves as prince or princess, as was custom for the Rhoynar. And Dorne is the only kingdom in the 7 kingdoms where the inheritance of lands and titles goes to the eldest child, not to the closest male descendant. On the other hand, the Rhoynar converted to the fate of the 7 and mostly abandoned their fate of the Mother Rhoyne. Although a small portion of the Rhoynar stayed true to their beliefs and branched off, to live by themselves on boats on the river Greenblood. I think 10,000 ships has a lot of potential. I myself am a sucker for seeing cities and lands we haven't seen yet come to life. And 10,000 ships could take us to the Rhoynish cities, the Basilisk Isles, Sotorios, Nath and the Summer Isles. Add to that the war between the small kingdoms over uniting Dorne and you can make at least 4 or 5 seasons of good television. This return to Dorne would also be a second chance to actually show us Dornish culture. The introduction of House Martell and Dorne in Game of Thrones was by no means bad, but the crazy feminist arc with Ellaria and the Sand Snakes quickly killed all hope we might have had for Dorne. Just as is the case with the Iron Islands and the North, Dorne has a truly distinct culture from the rest of the Seven Kingdoms. 10,000 Ships is the showrunner's chance to finally do that culture justice. Are you looking forward to 10,000 Ships as well? Or would you rather they would have focused on another story? Please let me know in the comments. Thank you all very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time as well.